20 years ago, Sarah walked away from the love of her life. Now, standing in the doorway of her childhood home after her mother's funeral, she sees her Emma, the woman who knew every dream, every fear, every secret corner of her heart, the one she left behind. Their eyes meet across the crowded room, and suddenly, 2 decades dissolve like morning mist. Some loves never die. They just wait. This is the story of two mature women who discover that the heart doesn't forget. And sometimes the greatest courage is allowing yourself to love again. The funeral reception felt suffocating. Sarah stood by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass, when she felt it, that familiar electricity that made the hair on her arms stand up. She didn't need to turn around to know Emma had entered the room. 20 years. It had been 20 years since she'd fled this small town, fled the whispers, fled her own truth. At 45, Sarah had built a successful architecture firm in Seattle, had learned to live with her choices. But she'd never stopped thinking about the woman she had left behind, Sarah. The voice was deeper now, richer with age, but unmistakably Emma's. She turned slowly, and her breath caught. Emma stood 3 feet away, silver threading through her auburn hair, laugh lines framing those unforgettable green eyes. She was more beautiful than Sarah remembered, carrying her years with a grace that made Sarah's heart ache. "Emma, I didn't know you still lived here. I never left." There was no accusation in Emma's voice, just a statement of fact. "I'm sorry about your mother. She was a good woman." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Her mother had softened in her final years, had even asked about Emma once or twice. But by then, the chasm between Sarah's past and present felt too wide to cross. "You look well," Emma continued. And Sarah caught something in her expression, not anger, not bitterness, but something sadder. Resignation, perhaps? Or acceptance. "So are you still teaching?" "Principal now, actually." "At the high school." Emma smiled, and Sarah remembered how that smile used to light up her entire world. 20 years in education. Time flies. Time flies. Such a simple phrase for 2 decades of living separate lives, of becoming different people. Yet standing here, Sarah felt like that 22-year-old again, terrified and desperately in love, unable to reconcile who she was with who her family expected her to be. "I should go," Emma said softly. "I just wanted to pay my respects." "Take care of yourself, Sarah." She was turning away, and Sarah felt panic rise in her chest. 20 years ago, she'd let Emma walk away without fighting. She'd chosen fear over love, safety over truth. She was older now, supposedly wiser. But watching Emma's back, she realized she was about to make the same mistake twice. "Emma, wait." Emma paused, her hand on the doorframe. Could we talk? Really talk? I'm in town for another week, settling the estate." Sarah's voice shook slightly. "I know I don't deserve your time, but there are things I need to say. Things I should have said 20 years ago." Emma turned, and Sarah saw a war playing out behind those green eyes. Finally, she nodded. "Thursday. The coffee shop on Main Street. 2 o'clock." Then she was gone, leaving Sarah standing by the window, her heart pounding like she'd just run a marathon. 4 days. In 4 days, she would face the past she'd been running from for 2 decades. Thursday arrived wrapped in autumn sunshine, the kind of perfect October day that made Sarah remember why she'd once loved this town. She arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, ordering a latte she was too nervous to drink. Her hands trembled slightly as she chose a corner table. Emma walked in exactly at 2 o'clock. She'd always been punctual, a trait Sarah had found both endearing and slightly intimidating. She wore jeans and a navy sweater that brought out her eyes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Sarah stood awkwardly, unsure whether to offer a hug, a handshake, or just sit down. Emma made the decision for her, sliding into the opposite chair with a small smile. You were always early to everything. Some things don't change, and you're still perfectly on time. Sarah managed to smile back. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. Emma's honesty was characteristic. She'd never been one for games or pretense. I've spent 20 years building a good life, Sarah. I wasn't sure I wanted to open old wounds. I understand. I wouldn't blame you if you got up and left right now. Emma studied her for a long moment. But you hoped I wouldn't? Yes, Sarah met her gaze. I hoped you wouldn't. They ordered Emma a cappuccino with extra foam, just like she used to, and sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop bustled around them, full of people living their ordinary lives, unaware that in this corner booth, two women were carefully unwrapping years of buried history. Why did you leave? Emma's question was quiet but direct. Really leave, I mean. Not just the town, but us. Sarah had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times in her head over the years. She'd crafted eloquent explanations, carefully worded apologies. But sitting across from Emma, all those prepared speeches evaporated. I was terrified, she said simply. My parents, the church, this whole town, they had such clear expectations of who I should be. And I loved you so much, it scared me even more. That kind of love, Emma. It demanded I be brave, be honest, be myself. And at 22, I didn't know how to do that. Emma's expression softened slightly. I was scared too, you know. But I thought what we had was worth fighting for. It was. God, Emma, it was worth everything. I just couldn't see it then. Sarah's eyes burned with unshed tears. I thought if I left, if I went somewhere where no one knew me, I could become the person I was supposed to be. But all I did was become someone who was very successful and very alone. You never married? Had a family? Sarah shook her head. I dated. Even got engaged once. To a perfectly nice man who deserved better than someone whose heart was still in a small town with someone else. She paused. What about you? I came close once, about 10 years ago. Jennifer was a teacher at a school in the next county. She was kind, funny, everything you'd want in a partner. Emma stirred her cappuccino absently, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't commit to building a life with someone when I was still ... She trailed off. Still what? Emma looked up, and the vulnerability in her eyes made Sarah's heart contract. Still waiting for you to come home? They began meeting every day. What started as that single coffee stretched into walks through the town park. Dinner at the Italian restaurant that used to be a hardware store. Late-night phone calls that reminded Sarah of being 17 again, but they weren't 17. They were two women in their mid-40s, carrying decades of experiences, losses, and hard-won wisdom. Emma told Sarah about her father's death 5 years ago, about taking care of her mother who now had Alzheimer's, about the students whose lives she'd touched and who had touched hers in return. Sarah shared her own journey. The therapy that helped her accept herself, the pride parade where she'd finally felt like she belonged, the successful business that meant nothing when she came home to an empty apartment. She talked about the relationships that failed because she kept comparing everyone to a memory, to a love she'd never let herself fully grieve. On the 6th day, Emma took Sarah to the lake where they used to sneak away during high school summers. The old dock was still there, weathered but standing. They sat side by side, feet dangling over the water, shoulders just touching. I used to come here after you left, Emma said quietly. I'd sit right here and try to understand how someone could love me the way you said you did, then just disappear. I never stopped loving you. The words came out raw, honest. That was the problem. I thought distance would make it fade, but it didn't. It just became this constant ache I learned to live with. Emma turned to look at her. Then why didn't you come back? Even years later, when you built your life, found yourself, why didn't you reach out? Shame, guilt, fear that too much time had passed, that you'd moved on, and I'd be nothing but a painful reminder. Sarah picked up a smooth stone, turned it over in her palm. And maybe I thought I didn't deserve a second chance. That some mistakes are too big to fix. My therapist, yes, I have one too, says we all deserve second chances. That holding on to hurt only punishes ourselves. Emma's voice was thoughtful. I was angry at you for a long time, Sarah, but anger takes so much energy, and eventually I just got tired. I forgave you not because what you did was okay, but because I needed to move forward. I don't expect you to give me another chance, Sarah said carefully. I know I hurt you terribly. I just needed you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. That not a day went by when I didn't think about you. Wonder if you were happy. Hope you found someone who gave you the love you deserved. And if I told you I never found that? That I built a good life, but always felt like something essential was missing? Emma's hand found Sarah's, fingers intertwining like they had 1,000 times before. What then? Sarah looked at their joined hands, then up at Emma's face. The afternoon sun caught the silver in her hair, creating a halo effect that made her seem almost ethereal. But she was real, solid here. Then I'd say that I'm 55 years old. My mother just died, I'm selling her house, and I need to decide what comes next in my life. Sarah's thumb traced gentle circles on Emma's palm. And for the first time in 20 years, I can imagine a future that doesn't feel empty. Emma was quiet for a long moment, watching the sunlight dance on the water. I'm 45, settled, have a job I love, and a life that works. Letting you back in isn't simple, Sarah. It's not like we're kids who can just pick up where we left off. I know. There's hurt here. Trust that needs rebuilding. We're different people now. I know that too. And I'm terrified, Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Terrified that I'll open my heart again and you'll run. That I'll be left picking up pieces all over again. Sarah squeezed her hand. I can't promise I won't mess up. I can't promise everything will be perfect. But I can promise that I'm done running. That if you're willing to try, I'll show up every single day and work to earn back your trust. Emma turned to face her fully. I need time. I need us to take this slowly, to really get to know who we are now, not just who we were. Whatever you need. I'm not going anywhere. 3 months later, Sarah stood in her Seattle apartment, surrounded by boxes. The moving company would arrive tomorrow. She was leaving the life she'd built, the city she'd called home for 2 decades. And moving back to the small town she'd once fled, it should have felt terrifying. Instead, it felt like finally exhaling after holding her breath for 20 years. Her phone rang. Emma. Right on time for their nightly call. Hey, Sarah answered, unable to keep the smile from her voice. Hey yourself. How's the packing going? Almost done. I can't believe I accumulated this much stuff. Sarah looked around at the evidence of her life, the expensive furniture, the art she'd collected, the things she'd bought to fill the spaces that should have been filled with love. Most of it's going to charity. Turns out I don't need much. Just a stubborn woman with trust issues and a mother with Alzheimer's. Emma's tone was teasing but warm. Exactly what I need, actually. They'd taken it slow, just as Emma requested. Sarah had flown back to Seattle, but returned every other weekend. They'd video called daily, sometimes for hours, sometimes just to say goodnight. They'd gone to couples therapy, Emma's condition for moving forward, where they'd learned to communicate the wounds they'd both carried. To understand how their past shaped their present, Sarah had met Emma's mother, spending afternoons reading to her, learning the woman her daughter had become. Emma had flown to Seattle twice, seeing Sarah's world, meeting her friends, understanding the life she'd built, even if it was lonely. And slowly, carefully, they'd fallen in love again. Not the desperate, secret love of their youth, but something deeper, richer. A mature love built on honesty, on showing up, even when it was hard, on choosing each other every day. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. Not about us, but about moving back. Facing people who knew me when I was that scared kid who ran away. You're not that person anymore, Emma said gently. And honestly, most people have their own lives to worry about. The ones who judge aren't worth your energy. When did you become so wise? After about 7 years of therapy and a really good book club? Emma laughed. Sarah, I need to tell you something. The serious tone made Sarah's heart skip. Okay, I love you. I loved you 20 years ago. I never stopped loving you, and I love who you are now. Tomorrow, when you arrive, I'm not expecting you to be anyone but yourself. No pretending, no hiding. Just us figuring out our life together. Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. I love you too. So much it still scares me sometimes. But it's a good scared now. The kind that means something matters. The kind that means you're alive, Emma agreed. Drive safely tomorrow. I'll have dinner ready. You're cooking? Should I be worried? I've improved. Only minor kitchen fires these days. They laughed together, and Sarah felt something settle in her chest, a sense of rightness, of coming home not just to a place but to herself. After they hung up, Sarah walked to her window, looking out at the Seattle skyline one last time. She'd achieved everything she'd set out to accomplish here. Success, independence, respect. But she'd done it all while carrying a hole in her heart. Tomorrow, she'd drive toward a future that looked nothing like she'd planned and everything like she'd dreamed. She'd walk into Emma's arms, into a life they'd built together, into the second chance she'd never thought she'd get at 45. She was finally brave enough to choose love over fear. And that, she thought, was the real success story. Some stories don't end, they just wait for us to be ready to live them. Sarah and Emma's journey reminds us that it's never too late to come home to yourself, to love, to the life you were meant to live. Mature love isn't about perfection. It's about courage, honesty, and showing up every day to build something real. Have you been running from your own truth? Is there a love, a dream, or a version of yourself you've been too afraid to embrace? Life is too short for regrets. Take the chance. Make the call. Come home to yourself. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real and that true love is worth the wait. Your journey to authentic love and life begins with a single brave choice. Make it today.